Hello everyone, thanks very much for joining me. I'm Dean the Vaping Biker, and today we're going to be going and having a little look at the Velocity V2, and I'm going to compare it to the Velocity V1 in a few places so you can really see the differences as well. Now, I got seriously gushy over the V1 and I am fighting the urge massively on the V2 as well. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. Now, since I've had it a couple of 3 weeks now, I think, so I have, oh, that'll be my phone. So I have been putting it under its paces, or putting it through its paces rather, to make sure that I can get a whole bunch of different builds in there, to make sure the quality is still the same as the V1, to make sure that the threads, everything else can be done with taking on, coming off, putting on, taking off, and everything else, which is what I've been doing. So that's why I've had it a little while and I haven't actually shown you guys, but it's on there. It's vaping like a beast. And a little bit of a plot spoiler: if you're going to go out and treat yourself to a new atomizer in 2016 and spend a few quid, then I would. Right, come on down and let's have a little chat and see what the up close and personal is all about, shall we? Come on down. Okay, so here we are up close and personal. Now, I've taken the exposure down a little bit while we look at the packaging, so it will brighten up in a moment. But what we've got here is very, very similar packaging to what we had before, with the little squeezy side caps. We've got, this is the V1, this is the V2, obviously. Now, the labelling looks pretty much the same, other than this one having the hologram on there, and not a lot else going on. Now, we're going to come back to the V1 so we can do some comparisons in a bit, but before we do that, let's have a little look and see all the joyous things we get in here, shall we? Notice I've got my sensible voice on rather than my super excitable daft fuzzy voice. It's not very easy, to be honest with you. Now then, let's have a little look and see what we get, taking all of these bits and bobs out. Oh, I may have torn that when I was first taking it out with my excitement. So we've got a little How's Your Father here telling us about stuff, which is always good. And there's the information on that bad boy. Now they give you a little card here, just as a kind of a real thing. It tells you about the serial number. And I believe that 90% of the time, or that if you were unsure, you could contact these guys, and they have a record of who gets all of the serial numbers, if you like. So I imagine at the very least they could be able to highlight where that goes with regards to a retail outlet if you've bought one from there. Obviously things go a little bit pear-shaped if you buy one second-hand, but quite often many people just keep hold of them. So, right, let me take this exposure up a little bit again now, so we're nice and bright and we can see what we do. Alright, so there's a 510 adapter for a drip tip. We've got, it's a little bit of a thing. We've got 2 sets of Allen keys, and I'll show you why there's 2 sizes in there in a second. Some O-rings, and in there we'll see a couple of pins, and we'll see why they're there in a minute. We've got 2 extra different types of grub screws. One of them is going to be crosshead, and the other one is going to be Allen head. There we go. Can we see that? Can't really see that, but that's the crosshead one, and they're the Allen head grub screws. I've got the flatheads installed in there at the moment, and a little keyring for you if that excites you. So here we go. Here is the bad boy itself. This is what. Let me give that a little polish quickly, because I gave this a bit of a clean up, and it's a little bit mucky. Right, here we go. So this is the Velocity V2. Now look at the sexiness. It's a really nice brushed effect on it. It just sort of dulls it enough not to be super shiny, but you don't see a whole bunch of the brushing kind of marks left on there. Any marks you do see are probably because I've caused them, to be honest with you. Now if we take the V1 out, we can have a little look at the size difference before we get into the guts of this bad boy. Now, we do know that they've taken just over 3mm off this little beastie, so you can see that there is a size difference there without a doubt, and it does make this look all little and dinky and lovely, doesn't it? And we're going to be able to see where that comes off in a minute, but let's just have a little look at the differences between the two. Now, what you've got here is you've got the engraved serial numbers under there. You can see the wall on this one is a little bit thicker than on this one, or at least, let me just check on something. Yeah, that sort of thickened out quite a lot on the inside on the V1. I've got to put this bad boy. No, I haven't actually. We're going to be looking at the two individual parts in a second. So from the outset, it looks very, very, very similar indeed. It's just a wee bit shorter. We've got a slightly different, or a slightly increased taper on the top there, which adds to the effect of it being a wee bit shorter. And it just looks, a little bit sort of fatter, if you know what I mean. When it comes to the drip tips, this one is a tad thicker, but very, very, very similar. I think we'll find that the threads on the bottom of this drip tip are a little bit shorter than the threads that were on the original. Yeah, and that's absolutely correct. So there is just a little bit less there to have to worry about than on the original, which could on occasions be a bit of a pain to get back in the hole. That no problems whatsoever, and it goes on nice and snug. So that is the outside. We can see all the air holes and everything else. Now, adjustment for it is exactly the same as before, in as much as it just, you unscrew the outer barrel there, and then we get to see the main airflow, the direct airflow opening up at the bottom, and then we can, if you want to, open up the indirect airflow holes at the sort of above the coils, if you like, which are going to help not only with cooling the coils down, but just getting a little bit more air in there if you so wish. Depending on the build, you may need that. I mean, I know that I've used some Claptons and things on here that can be quite warm, and so adding a little bit extra air after the coil is always useful. Plus, if you do stack your coils as well, then you know you can have an airflow directly to the upper coils as well as the lower coils, so that keeps that nice and easy. So we can unscrew this bad boy here. In fact, let's take the drip tip off first. We can unscrew this as before, and that gives us full visual on. Oh, dropping everything. Oh my word! Just giving it a little bit of a clean, and I've lost an O-ring already. There we go, get that bugger back in there again. So yeah, there we go. We can see that the indirect airflow is a kind of an oval slot, because that's going to be dependent on how high you raise this. So however high you raise the direct airflow, that indirect airflow is going to be able to be open or closed as well. Which is important. Obviously, if these were just holes the same size as these, as you opened everything up, then you'd only still get one lot of air going to your coil, or going into your barrel, so to speak. So that tightens on like so. Everyone's a winner. Keeping it nice and simple. We like that a lot. Now then, let's just get this. Let's get this build deck out of here. I really like the O-rings on this. They seem to have improved the O-rings. They're I mean, they're red, but the O-rings seem to be holding things tightly, but not too tightly. And I do know that on the original, these black O-rings could be a little bit too snug on occasions. And this is, I think, the second set of these that I went through, and these ones were better than the first ones that I had, but nonetheless a second set. So here's the two decks side by side. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get a little bit closer to the camera so we can really see the improvements that these guys have been making. Let me get that focus in there. I've got to try and remember to keep my hands in the same place. Okay, so here we are. Here are the two decks. Now, first of all, you'll see that the posts on the V2 are a little bit chunkier. They've got a little bit more beef to them, and that's going to be for added strength. It's reshaped a little bit, but they've also got slightly bigger post holes, which you may be able to see there. You may be able to make that out. The bigger post holes just help a little bit more when it comes to some of your bigger builds, if you so choose to put any in there. Now, as far as the machining on the deck, on the V2 seems a little bit tidier than the V1. Not that the V1 was bad in any way, shape or form, but yeah, it's just a little bit tidier on there. When it comes to where the base goes, if you like, previously the barrel would come all the way down and stop at this ledge. It had a little thingy inside it to stop at this ledge. They managed to do away with that. So we've got a nice sleek move all the way down there. Those two O-rings still prevent any extra leakage or anything like that, but it does mean that but that's one of the areas that they've managed to gain some of the loss, if you like. Gain some of the lose, or lose some of the height. On top of that, the 510 themselves. Now, on the V2, there is ever so slightly less threading on the V2, which means that you can have more confidence when using them with hybrids than the V1, because once this was nice and tight, on occasions this would be a little bit snug, and you'd have to loosen this out if you wanted to use it on a hybrid. Whereas on the V2, you've got a very proud 510 there, and rather than extending the whole pin, which is what a lot of companies do, they've reduced the threading part to reveal more of the pin, which means that it's still going to sit nicely in a lot of your mods, rather than trying to put too much stress on the 510 of the mod. Okay, now one of the other benefits, if you like, or one of the other changes is here we've got the little tab poking out the side here. We've still got the little tab poking out the side here, but we've got a locator down at the bottom. See that little dimple there? Sorry, I keep going out of focus there. That little dimple will correspond to that little dimple on the side of the barrel there. And if we look in the barrel, you can see that there's cutouts there and there, so on both sides. Whereas on the original, there was the cutout only on one, which is at 6 o'clock kind of area down here. And here you can see that there is one on both sides, which just makes locating it and fitting the cap just much easier. It just helps massively, because sometimes it was a pain in the ass when you would you'd have to look and see where the divot was in there, and then try and marry it up with this, and it was all a little bit blind. Whereas with this one, you can either look at it from the outside, or you can guesstimate. And if you have to turn this barrel, then you're only going to have to turn it, a maximum of like 170 degrees, and then you're in there. But it does make it nice and easy just to line those two dots up as so, just to make it nicely click into place. I'm not going to do that now, because otherwise I'll need to get the old How's Your Father to unscrew it again. Now, you'll see in there at the moment I have a bottom feeding pin, so there's a hole that goes all the way through. There's also something stuck in that pin. Let's get rid of that. Don't know what it is, but it's going to annoy me being there. Let's get that out. Fixed. Okay, so that bottom feeding pin is it's a hole all the way through. For if you're a squonker, if you like squonking, you don't now have to get secondary pins. You can use the one it comes with. Now it's slightly above the deck there, slightly above that positive post, because if you overfill it, it's still below the top of the deck height. So if you overfill it, it'll still suck back. But it will also allow a certain amount to sit in the deck there, waiting to be sucked up by your wick, which makes life nice and simple as well. So you can't really over squonk, but it will give you enough in there to be able to sit in there to be able to be absorbed by the wick. It is a pain in the ass sometimes when you squonk in a normal piece of kit. It comes up through the middle before your wick gets a chance to grab hold of the juice. It then sucks it all all back down again. But there we go. That's that. Now, I said a minute ago about we were going to have a look into the Espares package again. Now, when you buy one of these, this piece that I'm now going to show you will be pre-installed. So don't start trying to use it as a squonker and then going, well, it's not working. What's going on here? Let me just take these two joeys out, get the old pliers. Now, this here is the little pin, or the little grub screw. Well, dropped already, look. The little grub screw that goes into there. And that will stop you squonking. That will stop you being a squonker. Now, we've got two sets of Allen keys here, so we use the smaller one. Pop that in there. Try and make sure I'm in focus. I'm putting the camera in a slightly different place at the minute, just to see how it rolls. Oh, there we go. That's going in there, and that's going up nice and snug. So I can tighten that, and now no hole going all the way through. And that's blocked up that squonk hole quite nicely, so you can use it for all of your normal RDA needs. Now, I've been using this in squonk mode a lot, just because it makes me very, very happy. So I'm going to remove that pin again. Now, obviously, it means that you haven't got the hassle of having to take out the whole 510 and replacing the positive pins and all that sort of malarkey, which you know, is nice. And it comes with it. It comes with it already in there, which just makes me happy. So, as I said, when you've got the screws there, I've chosen the flathead ones just because I think they're cool and they make me happy to use. You can wind them all the way in without them falling through. I used a Velocity style deck on something a while ago, and I tightened up the one of the post screws. It actually fell out of the hole in the middle. I can't remember what. I think it was on a tank. I can't remember what it was. But yeah, these are just machined nicely. I've not had any issues when it comes to the wires that I've been putting in there. I've not had any issues with them loosening. I've not had any problems with these screws whatsoever. So yeah, makes things nice and easy. And like I say, these nice big holes here mean that it's much easier to put in your big bad boy builds. But that's it pretty much, ladies and gentlemen. That is the overview of the Velocity V2. And we've seen a few differences between the Velocity V1, and I for one think that they are superb. I mean, right there, look, I didn't know where that was going to sit, so I've got to twist that around, so I'll do that on a mod. Anyway, so nice size difference. Oh, in focus here, ladies and gentlemen. Nice size difference. We've taken a little bit off. We've got a little bit of a shorter stubby drip tip as well. And it's just badass. It really is the business. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of I'll put a build in here, and then we'll go up top. We'll have a little vape on it and a little bit of a chat on it, shall we? Let's do that. Okay, so that was the up close and personal with the Velocity V2 and comparing it to the V1 as well. Now, what I'm doing on here is something that I've not done before. As you guys know, I am quite the cloud focused. I imagine is the best way of saying it. The cloud focused when it comes to, or cloud focused kind of chap when it comes to how I build. So what I've done on this one for a change, I'm going to do this little section. I'm going to be as quick as I can, but it's a little section in two pieces. This one is a single coil rocking in at 1.2 ohms. 1.2. Look at that. Look. And what I've done is I've done it as a central coil as well, which I thought was an interesting idea in between the posts there, just to see what it was like, really. Even though I'm not a gentleman vapor, you know, I'm not very rare do I do that. No, I don't do that sort of thing. So, very rarely do I do that. So I wanted to give it a little bit of a shot and see what it was like. So I am at a monstrous 18 watts. Another device of this network is using your computer's IP address. I don't know what that means. Right. Okay. So 18 watts, 1.2 ohms on this little bad boy. I've cracked the air. I've just cracked it. I've not done anything massive with it. Look at that, look. What's that all about? Tiny amount of vapour, a little bit of flavour coming through there. Lovely. I don't really get how people vape that low, but there we go. 25 watts. A little bit more vapour. The flavours. I'm using Grumpy Custard in this at the moment. And it's massively there. You've got a nice flavour without going too overboard on the sickliness of it, if you like. Not that it's sickly, but do you know what I mean? The sweetness isn't quite the same as it is at higher wattage. So I'm going to put that at 35 watts, which is a bit scary for a single 1.2 coil, but we'll give it a go. That's pretty much where I'd vape it, I think. But the flavours there, I like it. I like it. I'm not going to vape like it very often, don't get me wrong. But, you know, I wanted to test to see what this is like at low build flavour kind of ways. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Because I always do the cloudy stuff. And I'm going to do a cloudy one next. But, yeah, I just wanted to give that a little bit of a blast. I've got the 510 drip tip adapter in there as well. If I put a tiny little drip tip in there, or a much thinner ball, that's like the thinnest ball drip tip I have. That, I imagine, is what you guys who vape low exactly would look like. I would think, or would look for rather. So yeah. There's still a reasonable amount of air in there, and it does well. You can still lung hit that nicely. If you can close this all the way off, and there is a tiny amount of air coming in, and I think it comes in from the drip tip. Oh, that was a bit warmer than I expected. Pretty much closed off now. Yeah, that needs to be turned down. Here we go. Let's go back to the 20 watts. Ooh, vaping like a sir. That's almost mouth to lunging, that one there. That's a very, very restricted lung hit. At 20 watts, 1.2 still. And is working like a beast. So, that, ladies and gentlemen, is that little single coil kicking through there. I mean, I don't know what it's like. To be honest, I haven't built with this single coil before, so it's not my style of vaping, but I thought for the sake of completeness and this video I would give it a shot. So now we're going to go to a proper build. See you in a minute. Okay, so I have taken out that single coil now, and I've put a couple of very messy I've got one 4-strand twisted 36 gauge Canthal with paralleled with a 26 gauge single strand, which looks a little bit like that, and it's messy as you like, but that's what it looks like. So tough. I thought I'll do the parallel, and I thought, fuck it, I'll do 4 strands of 36 gauge. That'd be nice. No, it winds like a bastard. So should have just put Claptons in there. Anyway, we've got nice and funkiness going on there. 77 watts. It's a 0.29 coil. So we're not going crazy sub-ohming. No reason to. It's not necessary. We're on a regulated device. So let's have a little look at 77 watts. Let's go about half open, more or less, on the holes there on the side. No indirect airflow. Clouds! That's actually quite a nice vape. I'm going to take that up a little bit more. Let's go 85. Ah, fuck me. Let's go 90 watts. Da 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 da. 90 watts. I'm going to have the indirect airflow wide open, as well as the main airflow half open. It's a little bit cooler. You can see that the vapor is a little bit thinner. It's not quite as milky and thick because we're not going directly at the coils. Now you can see, I don't know if you can see. Let's have a little look, see if you can see. Can you see? No, you might be able, no. Oh, there we go. You can see through there. So you can see that the air is going underneath my coils there. I've put them quite high up. To try and get the air sort of underneath and going sort of all whooshy and all that good jazz. That's a nice vape. That's a nice vape. Flavour's still there. Flavour's still rocking. It's just doing a cracking job. Right, let me just get rid of some of this. Look at that, look. Really, I should sort of just cut it and do it when it's less vapey. But I'm using a multi-vaping device. It covers up bad hair and gets away excess vapor. Right. So let me just check. Make sure I haven't forgotten anything. Shorter 510 threads, convertible bottom feeding pin, thicker posts, larger post holes, more efficient indirect air hole placement, double notch for locking tab, cap alignment, thicker primary cap, 3mm, a shorter profile, and smaller chamber. So because we're a little bit thinner, or a little bit shorter rather, we've got a little bit more of a condensed flavour. So the Velocity 1 was brilliant for flavour. The Velocity 2 is rocking it. It has intensified it that little bit more, especially when you're using the higher wattage stuff, in my opinion, because that's my preferred way of vaping. So all in all, excited. I'm not doing the monster gush fest I did at the first one because I'm trying to be objective. So, but I love it. I love it. This is what atomizers should all be about. It's just so easy to build on. It's so it's flavorful. It's airy for whatever you want. You can have your wide bore tip in there, or you can go for your is it slightly thinner than the wide bore? No, it's slightly wider, I think, than the previous tip. Or you can go for your 510 with more of a loose mouth to lung, or a very, very restricted lung hit, and it just does absolutely everything. It ticks all boxes for me. Right, so then, it's not cheap, but it's going on the avidvapor.com website in the States for $125. Now then, there is, I should have got this up front, but I didn't because I am not that prepared. Viv D Vapes in the UK are the stockists for Viv D Vapes, VIVD Vapes, are the stockists in the UK for it. They don't have any stock at the moment. They haven't got a price up at the moment. So I dare say they've either sold out, because I know that they were getting a very sort of early shipment. Or they've either sold out, or they're waiting for them to come in, and they should come in literally any time now. So there's those guys, and I think Saru Mods also are doing it abroad. I'll put all the links down below so you can check those out at your leisure. But all in all, the V2, it intensifies it a little bit. It's got a little bit easier decks to build on for your crazy builds with your thicker wires and all that sort of good stuff. The cap placement is easier. It's a little bit funkier to look at. It's definitely worth it. If you've got the V1, still go for the V2, because I think you'll like it, and you can use one as a squonker anyway all the time, so it makes life easier. Look at that though. Right, not gonna gush. Right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Dean the Vaping Biker. This has been the Velocity V2. It's fucking awesome, and I know people are going to complain about the price, but it is what it is. It's American made, it's hand finished. It's, you know, it is what it is. So go for it if you're comfortable with it. There's no point in putting no, it's too expensive, because that's the price of it. But thank you very much for watching. It's Dean, it's the Vaping Biker. This is the Velocity V2, and make sure you all have it large!
fading, it's come to an end. I feel an obligation to start again.